As most of you know, in the most recent NBA draft, history was made when the Lakers selected Bronny James out of USC with the 55th pick in the back end of the second round. And to be honest with you, I have never seen this much scrutiny and pressure under a second round selection in my entire life of watching basketball. I understand that it comes with the last name James, but let's just take a seat back and realize LeBron James has literally been in the league longer than his son's born, and he's now playing alongside him. Regardless of how you feel on how good Bronny James is or how good he will become, the fact that the two will be playing on the same team in the same league is flat out historic. And this duo got me thinking, who is the greatest father-son duo in not just basketball but sports history? To start the list, we'll be looking at an older duo who were both terrifying monsters in their respective fields. Norton Sr was a heavyweight boxer who infamously gave Muhammad Ali himself his second ever loss. Norton fought Ali 3 times, winning and breaking Ali's jaw in their first matchup, and ultimately dropping the other 2, though these bouts were both extremely controversial at the time. Norton was a force to be reckoned with and was selected to the Boxing Hall of Fame almost immediately after retiring in 1981. Through his boxing career, Norton not only produced wins in the ring, but he also produced a professional football player and coach in Ken Norton Jr. in 1968. Norton Jr., like his father, was a giant athlete playing linebacker at UCLA, earning himself a Hall of Fame induction before entering the NFL draft. Being selected in the second round by the Cowboys, he wouldn't find the field much with injuries. However, by year 3, when the Cowboys starting linebacker demanded a trade, Norton would finally break out into the league. He would lead Dallas in tackles, helping propel the team to a Super Bowl and the #1 ranked defense in the entire association. Norton would make 3 Pro Bowls in his career and become the first player to win 3 Super Bowls in 3 straight seasons. He would even tribute his father Norton Sr. on good plays, punching the goalpost or the air in tribute to the late great boxer. Bringing it back to basketball, with arguably the greatest father-son duo in NBA history, Steph and Dell Curry easily have a spot on this list. Dell was a journeyman in the NBA, but for a portion of time in Charlotte, he was among the league's best perimeter shooters there were. He also brought home a 6th Man of the Year trophy in his 16-year NBA career. Steph, on the other hand, would find a bit more luck in his ongoing NBA career. Not only has Steph cemented himself as one of the greatest players and the greatest shooter in league history, he also has catapulted the franchise in Golden State to one of the richest in the entire NBA, as well as branching into his own signature brand for sports apparel in the late 2020 with the Curry brand. Steph has achieved pretty much everything you can in the NBA, and although the Warriors look rough right now, he is still one of the league's most lethal guards and a nightmare matchup for any defense he plays against. Seth Curry, the second brother, has also had a pretty solid career as a rotational piece for many NBA teams throughout his career so far, and also, like Steph and Dell, an elite ability to shoot the basketball. Although you can argue Steph's career trumps both of the next 2 careers I have in mind, when you consider the value of both the father and son duos, I believe that Calvin and Grant Hill narrowly edged the Currys out. Calvin, the father of Grant, was a multi-sport athlete growing up, throwing 6 TDs, running for 8, and totaling 1,200 scrimmage yards in his senior season at Yale, while posting the triple jump record at his school in the same year. Calvin would be a late first-round selection to, again, the Dallas Cowboys, and in his NFL career would take home a Super Bowl with Dallas, making 3 Pro Bowls, and rushing for over 1K yards multiple times, as well as putting up 6+ touchdowns in 7 years of his career. Grant, on the other hand, chose basketball over football, which now seems to be the correct decision, because in the NBA, Grant would join Wilt Chamberlain as the only other player to ever lead his team in points, rebounds, and assists per game 3 times in his career. Now, his NBA career was great, making 7 All-Star teams and multiple All-NBA teams to go with that. However, injuries severely impacted how good Grant could have truly been. In college, you see, Grant was not just a great player, he was legitimately being called the next Michael Jordan. Hill is, in most people's opinion, the greatest player in Duke's franchise history. Because as most people know, Duke has a long history of producing elite basketball talent. Hill won 2 national championships, becoming the 8th player in Duke history to get his jersey retired, as well as winning the Defensive Player of his division one year and playing for Team USA at the Pan American Games as a college player. Now I know I said only father-son duos were on this list, but this father and two son duo had to be included as one of the greatest ever. Archie Manning, the father of Peyton and Eli Manning, grew up as one of the best football athletes in the nation and was known for his ability to play in the biggest lights. In his first primetime game at Ole Miss versus the coveted Crimson Tide at the time, Archie threw for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and rushed for over 100 yards, dominating Bama in an embarrassing fashion. Archie would go on to accomplish just about everything you possibly can as a quarterback in college before being drafted number 2 overall to the New Orleans Saints in the 1971 NFL Draft. Now Archie's career in the NFL was a bit underwhelming relative to his standards, mostly due to the amount of hits Archie took under center for the Saints and their questionable pass protection. Peyton, the oldest brother of the two, is known as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever touch the turf and holds records for the most yards and touchdowns in a season, as well as the most MVPs in league history as well. Peyton had one of the greatest minds the game has ever seen, reading the entirety of the field in pre-snap within just seconds, and his signature Omaha audible, which definitely still gives linebackers PTSD to this day. Peyton actually had a fracture in his neck that almost ruined his career midway through. However, he miraculously came back from this injury and broke the passing yard record when he signed to Denver after this injury. After breaking the passing record, he would go on to upset the highly touted 2015 Panthers, who at the time had MVP Cam Newton and Hall of Fame linebacker Luke Kuechly on the team. Peyton, without a doubt, had the greatest career of the bunch. Eli, on the other hand, is more of a wild card in the eyes of media and fans alike. You see, as a prospect, Eli was touted to be near the level of his brother, who was drafted just a few years prior. This hype would cause heavy disappointment when Eli struggled with turnovers through the first few seasons in the league. However, in 2007, everything would switch. Somehow, the 10-win New York Giants, who were viewed as a very mediocre first to second round knockout team, would make it to the Super Bowl against the undefeated New England Patriots with prime Tom Brady and Randy Moss. Eli would not only beat Brady, he would outplay him severely, sealing the game on a pass over the middle of the field to David Tyree, which is more famously known as the helmet catch. Eli would continue to have up and down seasons after this, before recreating the same magic he did in 07 and 2011, carrying a yet again mediocre Giants offense to another Super Bowl win versus Tom Brady and the Patriots. You can say what you want about Eli's career, but you can never take away the fact that he outplayed and beat the GOAT in the Super Bowl not once, but twice in his career. This trio makes an exception based on how drastic the three's careers all went, overall all having legendary careers in certain aspects. I want to give some honorable mentions to those who didn't make the list, but could easily have a case to be the GOAT father-son duo in sports history. Barry and Bobby Bonds both had historic moments in their baseball careers, with Bobby becoming the second player to ever hit 300 and steal 300 bases. And as for his son, well, Barry casually had a controversial but unattainable baseball career that I don't think anybody will ever one up in the history of baseball. NASCAR racing is a very under the radar sport for most people. However, for the Petty family, this couldn't be farther from the truth. Lee Petty was a pioneer in NASCAR history at the very early stages, winning the series championship early on, not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row, and getting himself inducted into every pro racing Hall of Fame you can think of. Richard Petty lived up to his father's name, becoming what many fans believe is one of the greatest to ever race the NASCAR track, taking home 7 championships and a record 200 races won in his life as a racer. Now finally, the greatest father-son sports duo of all time comes from an unfamiliar territory relative to the rest of this list. On the ice, both Bobby and his son Brett Hall cemented themselves as 2 of the greatest to ever lace the skates up. Bobby was a gruesome, hard-hitting defenseman who played in a gritty, no-protection era of hockey in the 60s and 70s, where his extremely physical play style was much appreciated. Bobby would take home a Stanley Cup, 3 Art Ross trophies, 2 Hart Memorial trophies, before leaving to the WHA midway through his career to win 2 more championships with the Winnipeg Jets in this league too. Bobby ended his career totaling 913 goals, which if it wasn't for scoring some of those in a weaker league, that would beat Wayne Gretzky's NHL goal record. Bobby's career is greatly diminished by off-the-ice actions that cannot be tolerated or accepted in today's society, though his legacy on the ice cannot be written off. Brett shared both this issue and skill, having a complicated relationship with the media off the ice, while being one of the greatest scorers in hockey history on the ice. Brett has arguably the greatest one-timer in sports history, a weapon that was heavily utilized in his 86 goal season. Not only did he score 86 in just 78 games, Brett ended his career 4th all-time in goals scored, totaling 13,091 points in 12,000 games played. Hull took home a Hart Memorial and MVP, as well as a Stanley Cup with the Dallas Stars, netting the game-winning goal in triple OT of Game 6 to win them the series and the cup. Both Bobby and Brett became Hockey Hall of Famers, and at the time of induction, they were the only father-son duo to be included in it in the history of its existence. And that will wrap up my list. If you felt like a duo was missing, leave it in the comments below. And if you disagree, make sure to let us know what you feel like your GOAT duo in sports history is. As always, make sure to like and subscribe to League Alerts for consistent quality sports content. And as for that, have a great day.